the Scrum Doc, the one actual dashboard that you can do for free that I've used to personally manage well over $100 million in revenue for the better part of a decade. And it's basically just a fancy Google sheet. Now, we're going to talk a lot about this, and if you want to know more about it, please let me know. But honestly, the Scrum Doc, the only thing that you absolutely must have to see a lot of success and understand your numbers. Let's get to it. The Scrum Doc here from Facebook Disruptor. Anyway, what I would like to say before we get started is thank you for watching all of these videos. And if you're brand new to it, hey, stick around and you can go ahead and subscribe to make sure you don't miss another one. Maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. Well, hey, look, things are going to get a lot easier because my ultimate goal is to give you back more time and put more money into your pocket while ultimately maximizing your amount of success and getting rid of a lot of the stress. And a lot of that has to do with knowing your numbers. You've heard me talk before, maybe, and that is fundamental to overall success. Now, if you enjoy what you're seeing here, please feel free to subscribe, like. If you have questions, don't be afraid to comment or reply back. Maybe you're on a different platform. Why don't you tag me and let me know how I can help you see it? And if you enjoy this stuff, you can enjoy Facebook Disruptor School as well. Go to facebookdisruptor.com, click on the Patreon button. It's up here, and then you can click your way into joining the school there. Now, I really, really want to pass forward the value of this document. I've mentioned it quite literally for years now, and it has evolved. And I'm here to really talk you through right now what it is, what it brings to the table, what it is that we can see, and really why. Why is this thing so much better than all of the fancy multi-touch attribution pieces, and why is it so much more impactful and important than having a wonderful data studio with wonderful graphs and all sorts of things that make you feel good about numbers on a sheet of paper? Let me get to it. So, one thing that Facebook does not do in their reporting, no matter how you arrange it, unless you get super deep into the reports, and then you're basically just programming a version of the Scrum Doc for yourself, which, hey, look, you can do. I don't recommend it, but you can do it. Is it doesn't give you contextual business information. And it doesn't really do a great job at showing you trend analysis. Now, as somebody that tells you that you should absolutely be touching your ads maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and that you can 100% manage your Facebook ad account in 90 minutes a day or less. Actually, if you're doing more than that, you're doing far more harm than good. And if you're saying, well, no, if I day trade, I'm going to make a lot more money. Look, you might. But if your success comes on the back of you day trading and being right with every single guess, what happens when you're wrong? What happens when you want to take a vacation? What happens when you want to pass it on to somebody else? What if you want to actually scale your business instead of just working harder and harder and harder to make a little bit less on top of everything? Well, if you want to really truly manage these things, you need some sort of document that shows this information in a way that can be helpful and in a way that is actionable. And sadly, that is not something that Facebook does very well. But they give us all the data we need to so that we can make one for ourselves. Now, mind you, this isn't just something that I do. I borrowed a version of this from some ad agency the better part of a decade ago. And then I flipped their thing on its side, and then I brought it to somebody that was spending $100 million a year on television, and I learned from them all the pieces I was missing. And then I worked with, some direct-to-consumer brands that were going 8-9 figures and selling out, and I solved their problems with it. And eventually, over the years, just got into this robust thing, and then simplified the hell out of it. And now it's something you can spend 15-20 minutes every couple of days updating, and you're going to be able to manage an empire over breakfast. And that's what we're really trying to do, honestly, is get our time back and make fewer moves. Facebook is a machine learning algorithm, and the more changes you make, the harder it is for Facebook to see success. So you have to know your numbers. So what does the Scrum Doc give us? Well, in an ideal situation, if you're in e-commerce, for instance, you really need 3 data points from Facebook. And honestly, these are the only 3 data points you're ever going to need from basically any platform. And understand that they're also complete bullshit. But they're generally lying to you by the same token at the same volume every single time. So you know what their version of the truth is. You can just take their Fahrenheit and turn it into Celsius, and you'll be just fine. And with those three metrics are spend, conversions, and purchase conversion value. That's it. We don't need link clicks. We don't need CPMs. We don't need reach, impression, frequency, none of that stuff. Now, they're fun to have, and they'll absolutely, help you feel smart and things, but they're very, very rarely actionable. With the exception of frequency. Frequency is a halfway decent metric to get into, especially if you're trying to funnel hack. But honestly, you shouldn't be trying to do that anyway. So with spend, conversions, and purchase conversion value, we get what's our investment, what's our volume of return, and what is it worth to us. Understanding that that's probably underreported because we're going off of a one-day click, because remember, we want data integrity. We're not going after, well, if we take as much credit from everybody else over the last week. Remember when we used to have 28-day and people were trying to take credit for the work of folks in the last month? What happened when they took that away? Almost every retargeting agency in the modern world went out of business in like 45 days, which was hilarious because they were robbing people left and right for years. Now, these metrics will ultimately allow us to factor CPA, AOV. We'll also be able to get profit. We'll be able to get percentage of spend. We'll be able to get percentage of revenue. So we'll be able to understand what is the overall level of investment. What's our overall contribution to the bottom line? Where are our biggest liabilities? Where are our biggest assets? What are the things that actually need to be worked on today? If you've got maybe a full funnel control campaign and a testing campaign, maybe you're nuts and you've got 3 or 4 campaigns in your Facebook ad account going and you want to see how helpful those things are. Maybe you've hacked your way down to having a few extra things that are providing incrementality to your business, even if it's short term. What does that bring into the table? And that's really good to know. So when trying to figure that out, it's not just what did it do today, because remember, today's data is basically useless. We want to know what happened over the last week. Is this month better than last month? Is this quarter going against projection? Are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? And let me tell you this, your data in your dashboard at 1 p.m. today is basically useless. Like, yes, you can say, well, I'm not making money by 1 p.m., so I'm going to turn it off. And what's going to happen? Well, you're going to turn it off by noon. You're going to turn it off by 11. Hey, Facebook doesn't work. Why is it that when I starve a machine learning platform from any data and I don't let it actually optimize over long periods of data, of trends, and I completely make it as dumb as possible so that I can feel good about myself because some other asshole ripped me off while teaching me what to do and I was overworked and underpaid? Why isn't that working for me? Well, here's the thing. The Scrum Doc is going to clear all that up. You're going to be able to see your total results day by day, week by week, month by month. You're going to be able to see it by business objective. That's how you should organize it. Now, me personally, I do control campaigns and I do testing. I generally don't have much more beyond that. I can manage $500 a day or $50,000 a day, and I probably need 3-4 campaigns max to get it done, which means I can ultimately understand where am I getting incremental value and where am I not. And especially if you're starting to take your Scrum Doc for extra credit and compare it to your store. What does Facebook say versus your Shopify? Maybe Facebook is saying you're coming in at $50 cost per and you made 10 sales. Well, what happens if you actually made, say, 15 sales? Well, your cost per is no longer $50. It's like mid-30s. And if it's mid-30s, is that number that was not good, is it good enough now? And if it's wrong by, say, 40, 50% anytime, 30%, 20%, 10%, if it's wrong by that amount every single day, how much money should you actually be spending? How much more investment should you be delivering to the system? And ultimately, once you start to look at Facebook as a piece of your overall business, how much more opportunity do you have? Almost always, the businesses that I work with that are super successful get down to a point where they are looking at Facebook at cost per acquisition, measuring against average order value. and then comparing that against their LTV, their lifetime value, and then lean into Facebook basically at a loss. Because if you need Facebook to pay off the investment you made into Facebook in order to have a successful business, when you inevitably fail, it won't be Facebook's fault. The honest truth is 5 years ago you could do that. 4 years ago you could do that. 3 years ago you could still get away with doing that poorly. But those days are behind us. The honest truth is the cost of advertising on Facebook continues to go up. And the business model that allows direct consumer and e-commerce and a lot of other businesses, even print on demand, to work are under threat. Whether it's drop shipping or SaaS, lead gen or DTC, you're going to have to get to the point where you can tell somebody in 30 seconds or less what your objective on the platform is, what direction you're going in, what your target cost per acquisition is, what your margins are, how much profit you made, and whether or not a 2x ROAS is better than a 1. Now, I know what you're saying, a 2x, of course, that's better than a 1. And I'll tell you this, you're dead fucking wrong most of the time. Because knowing that Facebook isn't actually seeing all of the data, would you rather get a 2x on 500 a day, knowing that maybe you're getting 10, 20% better than that? Or get 1x on 2,000 a day? Now, one of those brings you $500 profit. The other one brings you an extra $2,000 a day in revenue with maybe 3-4 times as much traffic. And how much is that extra traffic worth? It's probably more than the wonderful number that is impossible for you to sustain at scale on Facebook. And if you're ultimately trying to grow a company, don't be worried about making Facebook look good. Worry about making Facebook stable. And then ultimately managing your trend by business objectives so you can take into account your entire funnel. The Scrum Doc will give you that. Your Google Data Studio won't. Your Google Analytics won't. Trying to pair together 14 different attribution models from a bunch of different people to try to come to some bullshit version of multi-touch attribution won't. I'll say one other thing. We look at one-day click, because remember, the biggest lie in advertising is bottom-up attribution. And the reason that we don't care is because if we know we're being lied to all the time, but we're being lied to at the same level all the time, then all we need to do is redefine what success looks like. If I know that every time you tell me I have $100, I really have $150, and my goal is to hit, say, $750, all I need to do is get to a point where you tell me I have 500. Now, the opposite can be true too. Every time you tell me I have $200, really I only have 100, and I want to make 750. I know I need to get to about 1,500. Now, the fun thing is Facebook does not over-report. And people say, well, Facebook's over-reporting, and no, your attribution model is shit. That's generally what's happening. That's why we don't go for anything past a one-day click. Because data integrity and success in our business is far more important than making the Facebook number look good. I've made the Facebook number look so good that companies went out of business. I feel like that's a good place to leave it today. Anyway, with that being said, if you want to see more, YouTube says you check these things out. And if you really like it, maybe go over here and subscribe. Anyway, with that being said, once again, hi, I'm Charlie, and I'll see you on the internet.